I just get a sense that this guy has like a front runner mentality. And what I mean by that, when things are going great, he wants to Facebook Live in the locker room. Hey, you know what I mean? Let me just, let me show off, do what I do, whatever. But when things aren't going great, now all of a sudden, I bust my tail and make it seem like I'm the only one, doing this, and then you don't show up to work. Like everyone, all these other teammates are busting their behind. They're fighting and scratching and clawing to trying to win a game. You don't think they're not trying to win a game? But they're still being accountable to each other, to the team. They're showing up to work. They're showing up to interviews post-game. So to me, it's like, are you a front runner or what, man? Because there's going to be ups and downs in every season. And yeah, the Steelers haven't won a game. But you can't just be there. You can't just be there when things are great, and then when things aren't going great, well, let me disappear off to the cut. That's not what a true professional does. A true professional is going to stand in front of the camera when things aren't going great, and is going to be the first one to say, you know what, I got to do better. I'm the leader. I got to do better. Not going to be, I'm not going to show up to work. What sense is that? What is that? That doesn't make any sense at all.
But D, let me stop you right there, because you said I'm the leader. Antonio Brown is not the leader. He's just one of the best players on that team, if not the best player. The biggest difference is that you would have checked him before all of that would have happened. The veterans would have checked him. That was a great thing about the Steelers. I remember playing them, and they had a bunch of really good veterans. They may not have been, they were past their prime, but they always kept the locker room in check. Mike Tomlin came into that system where he had veterans that kept the locker room in check. Those guys are gone. So now you hear them lashing out at Le'Veon Bell. They're lashing out at the media. They're lashing out at coaches. There's no leadership there.
But here's what I'm going to say to that. And I think you would agree with this. As far as the Steelers are concerned, leadership starts at the top.
Right.
I've always been accustomed that there's one voice in the building. And all the stuff that you've been hearing out of Steelers, where you're talking about Le'Veon Bell and his contract, the offensive lineman coming out, you got outbursts by Antonio Brown. To me, that falls on Mike Tomlin, okay? Because you knew going into the season Le'Veon Bell wasn't going to be. There was a chance that he wasn't going to report. So you should have squashed that right off the top and been like, look, we're not going to talk about a guy that's not here. We're only going to talk about guys that's in the building. Because the programs that I've been a part of, usually players regurgitate what the head coach preaches to the team. Mm-hmm. And I have yet to see that from the Pittsburgh Steelers right now.
Well, I'd say this. Mike Tomlin, again, going back to when he first stepped in, had the veterans there, and they handled the locker room. So I was as shocked as you were as shocked as probably Mike Tomlin was as shocked to hear his players speak out about another player about strictly business decisions. So that one, I can't put on Mike Tomlin, because there's never a time if I'm a coach or a player that I'm walking into a locker room and about to hear other teammates talk about another player about their money. I've never seen that before. And we talked about that. You never talk about someone's money. So that one I can't put on the coach. I can put the rest on the coach, but when you already have that open up, they opened up a can of worms when they started that. The team opened up a can of worms. The leaders opened up a can of worms.
So at the end of the day, how much of this is about Le'Veon Bell not being there? At the end of the day, as we look at all this stuff, it all does ultimately come from Le'Veon Bell not being there.
Their defensive woes are based on Ryan Shazier not being there.
Maybe.
And Antonio Brown's frustration clearly is about Le'Veon Bell not being there, because he's the one person that came out publicly with support in a tweet for Le'Veon, saying we will be here when you get back.
In retaliation to all the other teammates.
But you know what? But you know what? I just can't give these guys an out because a guy's not there. It's the same thing as if there was an injury, would you give that an out if there's an injury? No, it's the next man up, and you got to keep playing. So to say that, oh, well, Le'Veon is not there, and that's the cause for all our woes, I'm not going to give these guys an out.
Maybe it's the fact that he's handling it as he is, and the team handled it as they did, that has a lot of those guys in that room disillusioned. It is your classic distraction. I always think that this word distraction is overused, but in this case, it really seems to be applicable.
But then
they really seem to be distracted.
But to me, it goes back to Mike Tomlin. It goes back to Mike Tomlin, because there needs to be one voice in that building that says, you know what? Forget Le'Veon Bell. He's not here. Okay, we got to focus on the next opponent, which is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's the most important thing.
Quick final thought.
You alluded to something. I know a couple of those former leaders, Lamar Woodley and Larry Foote, that kept people in line in the locker room. Before the Pittsburgh Steelers, I agree with you. This is why I implore young people to play sports. Because it doesn't necessarily build character, it reveals it. And you talked about how you're going to behave when you're winning, how you're going to behave when we struggle.